guys, it's Nurse J at Nursing the Truth, and I hope everyone is having a great Wednesday. Well, Nurse J is off from work today, taking a little bit of time for you guys, and just trying to chill a little bit. So, first and foremost, I want to thank all my subscribers for listening and putting up with me with all this historical information and helping you unwind your mind one day at a time. So, also, thank you for the subscribers that have given me very nice comments and also commenting me on how quickly I get back to you. Now, first of all, I'd like to say that I do like to keep in touch with my subscribers for any questions, comments, or anything they would like for me to talk about. As you know, I'm all into history and into the things of the Bible that people just don't understand, or maybe they've been brought up into it too much to where they've been brainwashed. So I'm here to undo that, just as I myself have been unwinding my mind for the past 3 years. Now, with all that being said, truth seekers, Gnostics, pagans, atheists, Christians, if you land on my channel, would like to talk a little bit, just for a brief few moments, if you can listen to me for just that long. We're going to talk about Ugarit and the Bible. Now, in the 20s, in Rosh Hashanah, in Ugarit, Syria, Canaan area, they found a bunch of tablets dating long time ago. And come to find out, there was a lot of similarities between Ugarit, Syria, Canaan, and the Old Testament. Now, as we know, truth seekers, Canaan and the people that lived in the area of Canaan were already there. And then when Tutmosis III came in, it became a vassal state of Egypt. Now, before then, there were people there as Canaanites. Okay? And the ancient Canaanite city of Ugarit is very important because of the Old Testament. And the literature of the city and theology contained therein go a very long way in helping us, the people, to understand the meaning of various biblical passages, as well as deciphering those words. Ugarit was a political, religious, and economic height around the 12th century BCE, and thus its period of greatness corresponds with the entry of Israel into Canaan. Now, the discovery of these Ugaritic texts, like I said, in 1928, a French archaeologist was there, and after a week at the site, they discovered a cemetery 150 meters from the Mediterranean Sea. And in the graves, listen to me, in the graves of these people, they discovered Egyptian and Phoenician artwork and alabaster. They also found some Mycenaean and Cypriot materials. You see, a lot of people lived and they traveled up to the Mediterranean coast because, see, there was a lot of earthquakes and a lot of disasters, as in the eruption of Santorini. So, after the discovery of the cemetery, they found a city and a royal palace about 1,000 meters from the sea and 18 meters high. It was called Rosh Hashanah, which means funnel hill. There also Egyptian artifacts were discovered and dated to the 2nd millennium BCE. A lot of trading, a lot of living, a lot of people going in and out. Now, the greatest discovery at the site was a collection of those tablets, carved, unknown cuneiform script. So in 1932, the identification of the site was made when some of the tablets were deciphered. The city was the ancient and famous site of Ugarit. Now, they did find a king's list as well. And the city of Ugarit continued to be dominated by the Egyptians through 14 BCE. Okay? And it gives these Ugarit Syrian kings list. Now, the literature that was found was very, very likened to the Akkadian and Hebrew script. And one of the most, if perhaps not the most important aspect of the Ugarit studies is the assistance it gives in correctly translating difficult Hebrew words and passages in the Old Testament. As a language develops, the meaning of words changes or their meaning is lost altogether. This is also true of the biblical text. But after the discovery of the Ugarit text, we gain new information concerning the meaning of archaic words in the Hebrew text. One example is found in Proverbs 26:23. It says, in the Hebrew text, silver lips is divided just as it is here. This has caused commentators quite a bit of confusion over the centuries for what does silver lips mean. The discovery of the Ugarit text has helped us understand that the word was divided incorrectly by the Hebrew scribe. Instead of the two words above, the Ugarit text leads us to divide the two words, which means like silver. So, the Ugarit pantheon. Okay, we've got to understand that the Syrian, Canaanite, Phoenician, they worship the same gods under different names, but they're all the same. And it says the prophets of the Old Testament rail against Baal, Asherah, and various other gods on nearly every page. Remember how they take the Asherah poles and they smash them down, blah, blah, blah. And the Baal prophets, are going up against Yahweh prophets and 450 prophets. And the fire of Yahweh comes down. Remember that? How funny is that? How long are we going to believe this BS? And the reason for this is simple to understand. The gods of Israel worship these gods along with and sometimes instead of Yahweh, the God of Israel. The biblical denunciation of these Canaanite gods received a fresh face when the Ugaritic texts were discovered. For at Ugarit, these were the very gods that were worshipped. Now, El was the chief Mac Daddy of them all. Yet El is also the name of God used in many of the Psalms for Yahweh. Or at least that has been the presumption amongst most pious Christians. Yet when one reads these Psalms and the Ugaritic text, one sees that the very attributes for which Yahweh is acclaimed are the same for which El is acclaimed. So what are you people worshiping? And in fact, these psalms were most likely originally Ugaritic or Canaanite hymns to El. which were simply adopted by them, much like the American national anthem was set to a beer hell tune by Francis Scott Key. And El is called the Father of Men, Creator, and Creator of creation. These attributes are also granted Yahweh by the Old Testament. For instance, you can read Psalms 82:1, 89:6. All of this is El. In 1 Kings 22:19 through 22, we read of Yahweh meeting with his heavenly council. This is the very description of heaven in which one finds in the Ugarit text, people. For in those texts, the sons of God are the sons of El. I did a video on that not too long ago. Other deities worshipped at Ugarit, Syria, Canaanite. Are you ready for the Mac Daddy wrestling match of them all? They were El Shaddai, El Elyon, and El Barith. How do you like that? Really? El Shaddai, El Elyon, and El Barith. Oh, this is nothing special, people. Get a grip. Go to your pastors and say, guess what? Woohoo! Yahweh! And Lil! Yay, we're worshiping you in the church. Woohoo! Volcano! Pissed off God. Yay! Because it's just a copy of a copy of a copy of a copy. And you will die for this thing, and you will hate people for this book. And all of these names are applied to Yahweh by the writers of the Old Testament. What this means is that the Hebrew theologians adopted the titles of the Canaanite gods and attributed them to Yahweh in an effort to eliminate them. Yes. If Yahweh is all of these, there is no need for the Canaanite gods to exist. This process is known as assimilation. Besides the chief god at Ugarit, there were also little lesser gods, demons, and goddesses. The most important of these lesser gods were Baal, familiar to all of those readers of the Bible. Remember? Asherah, also familiar to the readers of the Bible, and Yam, the god of the sea. Inky! And Mut, or Mot, the god of death. What is of great interest here is that Yam is the Hebrew word for sea, and Mot is the Hebrew word for death. Is this because the Hebrews also adopted these Canaanite ideas as well? Yes. And one of the most interesting of these lesser deities, Asherah, plays a very important role in the Old Testament. There she is called the wife of Baal, but she is also known as the consort of Yahweh. But wait, hold on. But we never hear of the Almighty Creator married to always him. The man that wears the pants in the family. Wait a minute. How can you get a child without the woman? You can't. See, this is when the patriarchal system took place and left the woman out for rags. And that's why the people to this day, woman, shut up and cover your heads and your mouth, and you will do what your man says. Well, guess what? We ain't listening to you. Never. Ever. Now, that is some Yahwehist. Asherah is Yahweh's female counterpart. And inscriptions have been found dated between 850 and 750 BCE. Oh, was that in the time of Hezekiah, Jeremiah, Isaiah, Hosea? And they say this they say on tablets and artifacts. I bless you through Yahweh of Samaria and through his Asherah. Samaria, isn't it the northern kingdom of Israel? The tribes. And in the same period, it says, blessed be Uriah Yahu through Yahweh, and his enemies have been conquered through Yahweh's Asherah. Ooh, she was a fighting goddess, wasn't she? Anana? Now, as already we've talked about, the most and one of the most important or lesser deities was Baal. And Baal's described on the rider of the clouds in the Ugarit text. Interestingly enough, this description is also used of Yahweh in Psalm 6, 8, and 5. 68, verse 5. Now, how can you get Baal, a rider of the clouds, and then you're going to get the creator of the universe, Yahweh, riding on the clouds? But in the divine council of Ugarit, Yahweh is the child of El? Good God, what have we got ourselves into, my friends? This Yahweh is not the Most High. It has nothing to do with the universal force, the natural laws, the Netaru. If you want to go to church and believe that Yahweh is the Most High God, you go right ahead, because it's telling you it, the entity, is not the Most High. So, do what you want, but I'm exposing this rat bastard for what it is. Now, in the Old Testament, Baal is named 58 times in the singular and 18 times in the plural. The prophets, get a load of this. The prophets protested constantly against the love affair the Israelites had with Baal in Hosea 2:19, for example. The reason Israel was so attracted to Baal was that, first of all, some Israelites viewed Yahweh as a god of the desert, and so when they arrived in Canaan, they thought it only proper to adopt Baal, the god of fertility. As the old saying goes, whose land, his God. For these Israelites, Yahweh was useful in the desert, but not very much help in the land. There is one Ugarit text which seems to indicate that among the inhabitants of Ugarit, Yahweh was viewed as another son of El. Another son of El? And you people, Yahweh, Jehovah. There's none like you, 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 Jehovah. See, I used to sing that in church. And I will not sing it now because it's a lie and a fraud. And once you go digging, my friends, you will see that you have been bamboozled. You will see that you have been lied to. Yes, this gets me riled up because I laugh at this crap now. The time of waking up, friends, is now. The time of getting this information out is now. The time to come together as one and unite and see this thing fall is now. Share it with your friends and your family and get in your pastor's face and you're a priest. And in the tablets, it was inscribed, the name of the Son of God is Yahweh. The text seems to show that Yahweh was known at Ugarit, though not as the Lord, but one of his many sons of El. And other gods at Ugarit, Dagon, Horon, Nahar, Resheph, Kotar, Holsis, Shakar, and Shalem. The folks at Ugarit were also plagued by a host of demons and lesser gods. The people at Ugarit saw the desert as the place which was most inhabited by demons. And they were like the Israelites in this belief. And in this writing is a list of these demons. One of the most famous of the lesser deities at Ugarit was a man named Daniel. Oh, does that sound familiar, like Daniel? Daniel? There's a little doubt that this figure corresponds with the biblical Daniel. I don't know, it could be. While predating him by some several centuries. But this has led many Old Testament scholars to suppose that the canonical prophet was modeled on him. His story is found in the Ugarit text at KTU 1.17 through 1.19 in these Ugarit texts. You can easily read them on the internet. Another creature which has ties to the Old Testament is that great Leviathan, the monster, you see, that Satan battles with, you see, in Isaiah 27:1. But in the Ugarit text, it also describes this beast in Psalm 74:13 and 104:26. Now, the worship at Ugarit and in ancient Israel, Ugarit as in Israel, the cult played a central role in the lives of the people. And one of the central Ugarit myths was the story of Baal's enthronement as king. Now, in this story, Baal was killed by Mot, Remember the death god? And his remains dead until the spring of the year. His victory over death was celebrated as his enthronement over the other gods. But the Old Testament also celebrates the enthronement of Yahweh. In Psalms 47:9, Psalms 93:1, Psalms 96:10, and Psalms 97:1 and 99:1. As in the Ugaritic myth, the purpose of Yahweh's enthronement is to reenact creation. That is, Yahweh overcomes death by his recurring creative little acts. Now, the major difference between the Ugaritic myths and the biblical hymns is that Yahweh's kingship is eternal and uninterrupted, while Baal's is interrupted every year by his death. And since Baal is the god of fertility, and the meaning of this myth is quite easy to understand, as he dies, so the vegetation dies, and when he is reborn, so is the world. Not so with Yahweh, for since he is always alive, he's always powerful. In Psalms 29:10. Let's see what else I can find. Oh, yet another interesting parallel between Israel and Ugarit is the yearly ritual known as sending out of the scapegoats. Oh my God. Is that not funny or what? You're going to send out two little goats, and one's going to take the sins of the people and going to run off. Woohoo! All right, jokers, get back to doing the dirty little deeds you've been doing before. Who gives a shit about a goat? Okay, now moving on. Much I digress. So the little goats, one is for God and one is for the demon. The biblical text which relates this procedure is in Leviticus 16:1-34. In this text, a goat is sent into the wilderness for Azazel, a demon, and one is sent into the wilderness for Yahweh. This rite is known as an eliminatory rite, that is, a contagion, in this case sin, communal sin, is placed on the head of the goat and is sent away. Bye bye, little goatie. And in this way, it was believed that magically the sins and the sinful material was removed from the community. Really? What kind of magic show is this, my friends? And you're going to go to the church and read that stupid ass Levitical book? Leviticus? Dear God, what is wrong with you people? But in the Ugaritic text relates the same procedure at Ugarit, Syria, Canaan. The Phoenicians lived in Canaan. Know your history, my friends. Find and dig this dirty mess that we've gotten ourselves into. But with one little notable difference in Ugarit. A Ugarit, a woman priest, was involved at the rite as well. The rituals performed in Ugaritic worship involved a great deal of alcohol and sexual activity. Worship at Ugarit was essentially a drunken orgy in which priests and worshipers indulged in excessive drinking and excessive sex. This because the worshipers were attempting to convince Baal to send rain on their crops. Since rain and semen were seen in the ancient world as the same thing, as both produce fruit, it simply makes sense that participants in fertility religion behave this way. Perhaps this is why in Hebrew religion the priest was forbidden to partake of wine while performing any rituals, and also why females were barred from the precincts. Let's see. What else can we do and say about this? Well, let's just go to the conclusion. Since the discovery of the Ugaritic text and the study of that Old Testament has never been the same, we now have a much clearer picture of Canaanite religion than we've ever had before. We also understand the biblical literature itself much better, as we are now able to clarify difficult words due to their Ugaritic connections. The student who is interested in the earliest and therefore formative period of Israel's history are heartily encouraged to read. Oh, would you like also to know where I found this information at? And you're actually going to laugh. And I'm going to show you. Quartz Hill School of Theology. And you can find this, like I said, Quartz Hill School of Theology. And it's under theology.edu. And what's funny about this is that this is a Bible school. And you're like, well, wait a minute. Let's go look at this. Okay, let's go dive into this really quick. So I'm going to go ahead and put in, okay, Quartz Hill School of Theologists is a Baptist for profit. Baptist for profit Theology Institute established. The campus is located in California. So they're going to put this stuff online. And it's a Baptist for profit school. See, the dirty little rat bastard people that go to these theology seminary schools. They know this information, people. They know about Israel and Canaan and all the different gods that were switched, and they're going to feed you this hogwash bullshit. And you're going to give them your money. Why don't you just quiz your little preacher, pastor, priest today? And ask them, do they know about the Ugaritic text? Ask them if they know about Yahweh Jehovah having a wife. And if Yahweh Jehovah had a wife named Asherah, Anana, then he isn't the Almighty. Until next time, guys, I hope you have enjoyed this eye-opener and exposing this lie for what it is. As always, God thought this behind me, giving me truth. I will set you free. Until next time, Hotep, Ashe, and always know that the Neteru is watching over you. Goodbye, my friends, and have a wonderful, wonderful day.